It's time. It's time. All y'all come in, hit the like button. Nathan Wade is testifying right now. This was unexpected. Okay. I got the alert 10 minutes ago. We are doing this. Come on in, hit the like button. But boy, oh boy, I did not think this was going to happen until I clicked in 10 minutes ago and I saw the back of his head. All right. So we're just going to jump on in, watch it, blast this out to as many people as possible because Nathan Wade is going to tell us how he does not recall a lot of things about the relationship between him and Fani Willis. Without further delay, I ain't even got makeup on. We're going to put it on, goddammit, as we're watching. But we are going to jump right on in. I think he's right at the beginning right now. So we're jumping in at the perfect time, chat. We're not going to miss a single thing. You guys know, blast it out to more people. Hit the like button. Let's see what Nathan's got to say. Roy Barnes is in the room from what I could see. Go ahead and hit play here. I'm going to boost the audio so we are all good to go. You guys kick back and relax. It was in recess. I think we're about 7 minutes behind.
Would Mr. Wade say?
Oh, here we go. He's here. He's here, chat. He's here. Let's go. He is here. I saw the back of his head. Okay, hold on. This is exciting. This is like the Super Bowl.
Wade,
Here we go.
By your counsel,
Here we go.
Mr. Evans. And then, Mr. Barnes, are you serving as counsel? Are you hanging out? What's your...
Hanging out, but I'll say that I serve as co-counsel.
Ooh! Roy Barnes is in the building. He represented Fani last time. He's right there with Nathan. We see the back of his head.
Would Mr. Wade say that you're serving as co-counsel as well, or is that... So I do want to thank you for being here today. A couple of things before we get started, and then... we'll swear you. I don't know if you've had a chance to view any of the other proceedings. We've been charged by a Senate resolution essentially to look into really a couple things now, but as it relates to the Trump election interference case. We've taken testimony from a number of folks, actually, not just folks you work directly with on the case, but people, legal experts from around the state. And that's going to be the scope of what we're going to ask you about today. And the goal for us is to see if there's any steps that we need to take to reinsure public confidence in the justice system. Chairman Cowsert brought, what do you write, Chairman, 5 separate pieces of legislation so far? 5 pieces of legislation. I think you passed 3 of them out of the Senate. So that's really the goal of what we're trying to do here today. To the extent that you want to discuss anything with your counsel, obviously you're more than welcome to do that. I do have a mic control here, just like we did this morning for Mr. DeSantis. If I will, as I see you two talking privately, I'll just mute the mic so nothing gets picked up by the media. And so if you hear me say you're muted, that's what I mean, and then I'll unmute. If you want to ask me to do that, be happy to do that. But I'll try to just kind of toggle that as I see you guys discussing things privately. I'll open up with a line of questioning, maybe take a break depending on how long we go. Leader Jones has the option to do so as well. And then Chairman Cowsert had asked some questions previously, and obviously that would be at his discretion as well. Did you have any questions or anything before we get started?
I don't have any questions, but I do have an opening statement I'd like to read into the record.
Sure.
Oh, shoot. Here we go. There he is.
My name is Nathan J. Wade. I am here on my own volition after accepting service of a subpoena from this committee. I'm a lawyer in good standing with the State Bar of Georgia. I served as a special assistant district attorney for the Office of the District Attorney of Fulton County beginning in 2021. Before accepting that appointment, I worked as a prosecutor.
I just boosted the audio for you guys. I will pull up other sources, so if the audio is really bad, we'll have another one. We're using 11 Alive right now, but there are other sources. So let me know if it's still unbearable and we'll switch because I don't want to miss a beat of this. Let's go.
In a private law firm and served as a municipal court judge for over a decade. For my appointment as special prosecutor, I swore an oath to follow the law. I took the oath with solemn pride and responsibility. I did not accept the position to financially reward or benefit anyone, namely District Attorney Fani Willis. My team and I investigated the state of Georgia versus Trump et al. For approximately 2 years or more. The investigation was not politically motivated or influenced. Rather, it was an independent investigation based on facts, interviews, evidence, and the rule of law. I was not directed, ordered, asked, coerced, pressured, or importuned to bring any charges in that case. We simply went wherever the evidence led us. No one at the White House counsel's office, the Department of Justice, or the January 6th committee directed, ordered, asked, coerced, or importuned, or pressured me to do anything in that case. I did not violate a single rule of professional responsibility in the Trump case. I did nothing to compromise the integrity of that investigation. After a thorough and independent investigation, we presented our evidence to a special purpose grand jury. In August of 2023, the grand jury returned indictments against 19 people, 4 of which entered pleas of guilty, and rightfully so. In January of 2024, a co-defendant moved to disqualify D.A. Willis and myself from that case. The court held a hearing during which I testified, was cross-examined by each defendant's attorney, and the link to that public testimony will be made available by counsel if anyone needs it. On March the 15th of 2024, the court denied the motion to disqualify. In that order, the court allowed the Trump case to continue only if D.A. Willis's office resigned or if I resigned. Later that day, I voluntarily resigned. Since then, I have had minimum contact with the Fulton County District Attorney's Office, and I have had no access to documents or evidence kept there. Based on your assertions to my counsel, the committee agreed to limit my testimony to an hour. The committee also agreed not to ask about any personal relationships or any pending or current investigations and prosecutions. I request that we honor that agreement, and my counsel will object if we do not. Please remember that my knowledge about many topics is limited because I have not worked or been contracted at the District Attorney's Office of Fulton County since I resigned in March of 2024. Also, many of the events happened years ago, so I may not remember specifics. Further, I am bound by attorney-client privilege, confidentiality agreements with the Fulton County, grand jury secrecy rules, and Georgia Rules of Professional Conduct 1.6a, which requires me to maintain in confidence all information gained in professional relationships. I'm here to cooperate. I will answer questions to the best of my ability, but within the confines of professional and ethical responsibilities. In that light, please allow me to further read into the record this notice and general reminder that I've received from the Fulton County District Attorney's Office.
Oh my God. Of course. Of course she wrote a statement for him. Of course. How many I don't recall do you guys think that we're going to get? He's going to testify for the next hour. How many I don't recalls? We're going to have to start counting and placing in bits. Okay, so he just read his opening statement. Now we're going to read hers.
Starting my position. It says, Dear Mr. Wade, I write to you in my official capacity as District Attorney for the Atlanta Judicial Circuit and on behalf of my office regarding a recent subpoena that you received from Senator Bill Cowsert and Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones requesting your testimony before the Georgia Senate Special Committee on Investigations related to your former contract or employment as a special prosecutor with the Fulton County District Attorney's Office. The subpoena does not provide any indications of what matters or information your testimony is expected to involve, but given the focus of your work as special prosecutor, I expect that your testimony will relate somehow to our office's pursuit of accountability for the unlawful attempts to overturn the 2020 presidential election in the state of Georgia. To make clear my official position as district attorney, I write to remind you of your continuing obligation not to disclose any confidential information related to this office's criminal investigations, including information that is protected from disclosure by grand jury secrecy rules or applicable legal privileges held by this office. To that end, this letter serves as formal notice that the Fulton County District Attorney's Office is asserting all applicable legal protections and privileges over information you have obtained as a contractor of this office. This includes knowledge of key evidence, confidential attorney communications, discussions of legal theories and analysis, prosecutorial recommendations and deliberations, as well as knowledge of the sources, procedures, and techniques employed. Last year, when your testimony was sought by Congressman Jim Jordan of the Judiciary Committee of the House of Representatives, I wrote you a similar letter, which I have attached. This letter serves as the same purpose, and the office asserts the same protections and privileges. In their absent attempts to serve the desires of a few individuals rather than the rights of millions of Georgians, and to discredit the good work of our office to defend the rule of law, members of the committee have recently subpoenaed me as well. My objections to these latest efforts remain the same. I am concerned that questions posed to you by the committee could implicate several significant established privileges and confidentiality interests. These include preservations of the secrecy of grand jury proceedings, which is well recognized principle in both federal court and the courts of the state of Georgia. Attempts by the committee to solicit information from you about evidence in the election interference case would run afoul of these fundamental principles. Additionally, questions about the substance of your work in this case would also seek information that is protected by the deliberative process privilege, attorney-client privilege, and work product privilege, among others. As Chief Justice John Roberts has observed, it has long been understood that recipients of legislative subpoenas retain common law and constitutional privileges with regard to such information. The site is Trump v. Measures, USA. It is the responsibility of the FCDA and its employees to protect secret grand jury information or information that is privileged, confidential, or sensitive. As former appointed special prosecutor for the office, this is your responsibility as well. Any protected information would belong to the office, not to you personally, and accordingly, you should refer the committee to this office regarding any such information. As you are undoubtedly aware, the sharing of non-public privileged information violates Georgia professional ethics rules, including special rules applicable to prosecutors. Such disclosure can prejudice defendants, victims, or witnesses, or affect the overall integrity of the proceedings. I know that you intend to comply in good faith with all proper legal requests related to your work with the office. Although I'm sorry that you are forced to deal with the ongoing efforts by others to attack the legitimacy of your work, I thank you for your steadfast compliance with the law and for your adherence to the claims of privilege laid out in this letter. I believe that the efforts of Senator Cowsert and Lieutenant Governor Jones and the never-ending investigations into the FCDA by them and by others, such as Congressman Jordan, are a part of a transparent and shameful campaign to use the force of government to harass, silence, and punish those who have been brave enough to stand up to Donald Trump. No true public servant deserves this kind of public harassment for their work. As I have previously indicated, I am grateful for your work as a special prosecutor and your commitment to the highest ideals of American democracy. Yours in service, Fani T. Willis, District Attorney, Atlanta Judicial Circuit. Copies of this letter will be provided.
No, she did not write a letter and have him read it. He had his own opening statement. Fani wrote a letter and had him read it. This is going to be an interesting hour, chat. Let's let it begin. Let the debauchery begin.
Through counsel as well.
Thank you, Mr. Wade.
I stand ready to respond.
I'd like to go ahead and swear you in, if that's okay. If you could raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. I do want to clarify, and Mr. Miller, maybe you can weigh in on this. I did not believe we had agreed to a time frame for this testimony. I certainly don't want to be here longer than we need to be, but I do want to just make sure that we're all on the same page before we start with that.
Yeah, not to my knowledge, I'm happy to discuss at our first break, but just for context, our earlier witness was started at about 10:30 and we were finished before noon. So I don't expect
yeah.
to
We go over a little bit, that's fine. I talked to Josh Belfonte about restricting it to an hour, so.
Okay.
That was my understanding all along.
I certainly think that I'll get through my stuff under an hour, I hope. And then we'll see, maybe we can break and see how much time we think we have left. Mr. Wade, thank you for that opening statement. It kind of gets to a little bit of your background, and so I don't want to belabor that too much. I think some of that's also just kind of been out there in the news cycle over the last couple of years. So given our time restraints, I don't want to spend a ton of time on that. I do want to just get into a couple of things that the committee's talked about over the past couple of months. But first and foremost, if you could walk me through your process of being hired. I understand that there was some taint work that was done, I think, by your firm and then maybe a firm that you have some partners in, and then that kind of transitioned into you working on part of the transition team. If you could just lay that out for us, and then if you could get us all the way through to being appointed as special assistant district attorney, that'd kind of be as far as we want to go with that.
So, no, sir, you outlined two separate processes. I had nothing to do with doing any taint work.
Here we go.
With the Fulton County District Attorney's Office.
Here we go.
Those contracts were held by two other lawyers. Nothing to do with myself.
Okay.
My appointment to becoming a special prosecutor dealt with my familiarity in terms of being a municipal judge and Ms. Willis being a municipal judge at the same time. We developed a sort of a mentor-mentee relationship over that course of time.
Great. Walk me through the work that you did on the transition team. I think that you were part of a transition team, as I understand from Ms. Willis's testimony, between her election and her swearing in. If that's accurate, walk me through it. If not, correct the record for me.
So briefly, I was a part of a transition team. I didn't officially participate in all the work that transition team performed. I was continuously a part of an unofficial advisory committee, if you will, with her.
Okay. And there was, at some point in time, there was a search committee that was formed. Mr. DeSantis mentioned that this morning. DA Willis discussed that as well. There's a search committee that's formed essentially to look into someone to lead the Trump election interference case. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you were part of that transition team. Is that? I'm sorry, you were part of that search committee.
I was.
Is that correct?
I was.
Who else was it? Was that an official committee that had named members, or was it more of an ad hoc committee?
No, it wasn't. I don't really recall the specifics of how it was put together. But I do recall taking part in doing the work. I couldn't tell you who else was all involved, but I know that she was taking advice and counsel from several other sources.
Do you remember approximately when that work began?
I don't. It was after she had won the election, obviously.
Okay. The meetings that you had that you were a part of, do you remember anybody else that was a part of those meetings besides the district attorney?
I don't recall if, I seem to recall that all the meetings had.
Here they go. The I don't recalls are beginning. Guys, I will show you the I don't recall merch that I have put together in preparation for this hearing. I don't recall number one. We are going to be tallying them all during this hearing. Let's go back on it.
Had different members. So there was never a set group of people that met in that regard. And so because of that, I'm having a difficult time recalling.
Do you remember any either formal or even casual interviews for candidates that would be a potential special assistant district attorney?
I do.
Could you tell me more about that, please?
Well, Governor Barnes might be able to answer that a lot better than I would. He was one of the individuals who was asked, I wouldn't call it an interview, asked to step into the role.
And he turned that down, as I understand it from previous testimony, due to his ongoing caseload. He had some current concerns about the publicity and security concerns that may come along with that case. Do you remember anyone else that the committee either talked to via a formal interview or informally?
Yeah, I recall. I recall Attorney Gabe Banks being asked to step into the role as well.
Officially offered a role, and he turned it down as well?
Yes.
Okay. Was there anyone else you recall that you talked to either that turned down the role or was never offered the role?
I don't understand the question.
Was there anyone else that the committee approached about the role?
There were other people, other candidates. I do recall DA Willis being very deliberate and careful about whom she selected for the role. There were lots of people who were sort of applying or wanting to do it because they had political agendas one way or the other, and she was astute enough to sniff those things out immediately and disqualify or do away with those particular candidates. But specific people, I don't recall.
Okay. Do you remember approximately when the focus turned to you as a possible candidate?
I don't remember in terms of time, but I can recall because DA Willis either was not satisfied with those who were applying to do it, or those whom she approached to do it had said no. She asked me to do it. Initially, I said no. I had no desire. Now, had I, in hindsight, I probably would have gone and had another conversation with Governor Barnes to get some specifics about his concerns, as opposed to going through the deliberative process alone. But I did, and ultimately I accepted the position.
I'm curious why you didn't have a desire. It's a high-profile case. You're an accomplished attorney, doing various work both as a judge and as a lawyer. This seems like something that would be a pretty good opportunity. Do you recall why you didn't have any interest in doing it at that time?
Yeah, I do. I rather enjoyed serving as a municipal court judge. One reason would be I would have to step aside, take a leave of absence from that position. The other reason was my firm at that time was doing very well, and I didn't want to step away from that work. The pay obviously was not very good. I don't think anybody can debate that point. And the subject matter, candidly, just didn't get my attention.
What caused you to change your mind?
After having more discussions with DA Willis and having more discussions with those that I look to for advice and counsel, and I have a love for different areas of law, and this was that for me, so I did it.
Okay. Do you remember and if you remember even the month, that'd be helpful, the month at which you officially started in that role?
I don't.
Okay. You served in that role up until 2024. Is that correct?
March.
And it would be best described, I believe that the DA described it this way, is that you were essentially the lead of the team that was working on the election interference case.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I want to ask a couple of questions that have come up, and this is one that you've seen it discussed, I'm sure, as it relates to the billing. There's been some discussion of this block billing, and this is just an example. This is one of the invoices that you submitted. I believe that you testified that on occasion you would submit invoices and you would receive questions back from the DA's office. There would be some adjustments to the invoices. Is that correct?
So I don't know if the questions would come from the district attorney's office or they would come from the accounting department within Fulton County. But I would get the question and I would respond to it.
Do you remember was the nature of those questions relative to essentially the tabulation of the invoice, which would make sense for it to come to accounting, or was it more so around your description of work that you have listed on the invoices?
No, I don't recall the nature of the questions.
Okay. It was stated under testimony of the district attorney that was her opinion, or at least her position, that oftentimes you work more hours than you billed. Would you agree with that assertion?
I would agree with that.
Help me understand kind of how the tracking process worked, given that, and were you on a cap of some sort? I believe in your contract there was a maximum total billable dollar amount each month, and you obviously couldn't bill more than that. As it relates to these invoices for 8 hours, would you say that the majority of those were 8 hours? Would you say that some large percentage of them where you went over on time but only billed for 8 hours? I think that you would agree that it's unusual to see kind of that rounded billing. We've looked at in this committee other billing from people like Anna Cross that worked on the same case, and this is just one example of one of Ms. Cross's invoices, and they're down to, it looks like, the 10th of the hour. So walk me through essentially.
Oh, that's huge. Look at the screen. So we're talking about Nathan's block billing, and I'm trying to keep the interruptions to a minimum so we can all listen. But on the left-hand side of the screen, you're seeing Anna Cross, who was also on the same team working with the district attorney's office, and you see how she is billing down to the minute. And in the law, it's such an important part of the process when you're billing clients, right? And in this case, Fulton County is the client because they're paying. Now, Anna's invoices look very different from Nathan's invoices. All right. So they're going to get into that. This part is really important.
Let me understand the block billing. And then I want to get a further understanding, if you could, as to how many days you think you went over. I see on the right-hand side there, you did bill for, you kind of have multiple days covered, 12 hours across 2 days, that kind of a thing. So I just want to understand the billing. If you need a more specific question, I'd be happy to ask it more specifically, but I'd just like to understand your perspective as you've heard the commentary around the billing practices here.
Yeah, so it's simple. If you take a look at the bottom of this invoice, this invoice specifically says submitted the 31st day of August 2022. Look right above that line. It says, due to billing restrictions, this invoice has been significantly truncated, which means that I was not allowed to bill over X amount of hours. That does not mean that I could complete the task. As a matter of fact, I can tell you for a fact, I could not complete any task in the amount of time that I was allowed to bill. So the way that you see those bills, each and every one of those bills has been truncated.
I'll go back to this one just because it's probably easier for us all to read. What do you mean by that when you say that each and every one of them is truncated? Do you mean essentially the total is truncated, or do you mean each entry is truncated?
Each entry. So the first entry there, you see 4.3. Now that's in 2023, and I don't remember what that was even about, candidly. But I can tell you, that if I billed 8 hours, it probably took me 16 to do it.
Okay, so on 4/13, you're working more than 8 hours that day. 4/3, 4/4. Then the 3 day span.
So sorry to interrupt.
No, you're okay. Go ahead.
If you look at the top portion of that billing invoice where it says description in the blue, right next to the word description is date completed. Mm-hmm. So the dates that you're seeing are the dates that the task was completed. That is not the date that the task begun. So if you see 8 hours and there you see 8 hours billed, it was completed on 4/3. I could have started that task 2 days prior.
So that first one, there's a meeting with team, research. So obviously a meeting with the team is a day, I would assume. Are you saying that you're having multiple days of?
Listen,
I know you don't know the specific. I'm just saying, let's just pick that one out as an example.
That's great. That's a great example. Yeah. I will tell you this. That team and I probably met in one day, probably 6 times in one day. And that's a small frame. We were constantly meeting because we had a lot of evidence and a lot of work to do. So yeah, that's a great example. Thank you for pointing that one out.
Because for the most part, and I believe you testified to this, more or less, you were going into an office. You weren't working from a Cobb County, Marietta office. You were working out of some office. I know we won't disclose the location, but there was an office where you were going to work where the rest of the team was working out of.
Absolutely.
Okay. Great. One of the things that the committee's discussed is the accounting here indicates that not all of your bills, but some of your bills were paid out of county forfeiture funds. We've taken testimony in this committee around the use of forfeiture funds. Did you have any knowledge that you were being paid out of forfeiture funds?
I don't even know what forfeiture funds are, sir.
Okay. So forfeiture funds there's a split, as I understand it.
You were taking Young Thug's money. I don't know what forfeiture.
That where essentially criminals have their property seized, that property is sold, that a percentage of that money goes to the sheriff's office. The bulk, actually, of that money goes to a sheriff's office. Was it 10%, Mr. Chairman? Flows down to the DA's office. It was, there's some examples here where you're paid out of, out of Fund 100, which is the general fund, and then some that was the forfeiture funds. I didn't know if you were a part of any conversation around different sources of funds, or if you were just sending an invoice and a check came in whenever it came in. Obviously, you're not reviewing that check probably to see a fund number on it.
So first and foremost, I have no knowledge of what this document is. I've never seen it. Secondly, once I submit an invoice, if there's not a question about the invoice, I expect payment. Now, albeit when I received the payment, it was most of the time 2 or 3 months later. So I have no clue where the funds came from, what fund was used. I would.
Do you recall one thing that we received testimony on from somebody who works with PAC, I believe, was that one of the limitations that he referenced as it relates to forfeiture funds is you're not supposed to be able to pay anyone more than the prevailing rate of a county employee. And that's about $75 or $80 an hour, in that ballpark, for the district attorney's office hourly rate for a county employee. Obviously, your contractor rate was more than that. Was there any conversation that you recall about a need to adjust a rate because you were being paid out of forfeiture funds?
Never.
Okay.
Now, I have a need to adjust my rate. Obviously, I'd like to be paid at my normal hourly rate, not the pennies that I was paid, but never.
Okay. You testified, I believe, to Mr. Jordan's committee. Is that correct? Congressman Jordan's.
Yes.
And there was some testimony there relative to the start of the date of the search committee. And we've kind of gone around it on this a couple of times, but I do just want to understand it, because I think that your testimony seems to indicate that those conversations were taking place.
Sorry, what are we looking at here?
This is a section of the, I guess it was a deposition before Mr. Jordan's committee. Back in 2024, I believe was the date of that. And really what I wanted to get to was here.
I don't know if you signed it.
No.
You want me to pull up the full document? I can pull the full document if that's easier. I just pulled a screenshot here. But you were asked, and so the search committee, you said that began when DA Willis took office on January 1st, 2021. Is that correct? Yes. And there was outreach to you to be part of the search committee prior to January 1, 2021. Absolutely. When did that start? Sometime after the election, but prior to her taking office. Now, you told us today that it was sometime after the election. So that's consistent. Is it your recollection that it was also prior to her taking office at the search committee?
So I'm going to need some context here, because, and I don't know if anyone has shared this with you, she had actually formed several search committees. There were committees to fill her office staff. Are you referring to that?
No, and I'll pull up the context for you here. It's going to be a little bit harder for me to do it, but let me just try to get this over on the screen here. try to. This top part actually is you talking about the interesting legal issues with the case and kind of what we just covered. And so the search committee, you said that this is what I just read, you said that DA Willis took office on January 1st. Is that correct? Yes. And was there outreach to you to be part of the search committee prior to January 1st? Let's go up to see what search committee we're talking about. So January 1st, I was part of the search committee for the newly elected district attorney, and we were tasked with trying to identify someone who would serve as lead counsel on the election interference case. The goal or trick was to make certain that the individual selected was one who had no axe to grind, if you will, which you just said the same thing here. 3 to 5 candidates said the same thing here. You referenced Mr. Barnes, so we cover all that. So we're in the context here of the search committee for someone to lead the special, the Trump election interference case. And so you talk about people turning it down. Governor Barnes turns it down. You referenced the same thing you just did. You didn't give enough credence to his warnings. And so the search committee that you said began when DA Willis took office on January 1st. Is that correct? Yes. And there was outreach to you to be part of the search committee prior to January 1st, 2021. Absolutely. And when did it start? Sometime after the election, but prior to her taking office. Okay, so between the election, and you're referring to November 2020 election, is that correct? Yes, ma'am. So when you had the conversation with individuals, you said on multiple occasions, you said no and turned their positions down. Who were those conversations with? And so I want to go back up to this, and the question I want to get back to is you testified today that it was sometime after the election that you were part of the search committee for the election interference case. You mentioned here as well that was prior to her taking office. Is that still what your recollection is?
So, and I think she's answered this for you. You can't form a committee before an actual act has occurred. Respectfully, I just don't think that what you're driving at is possible.
Which act did occur? Because the indictment states that the conspiracy started in November of 2020. The Trump electors met at the Capitol in December of 2020, which that was in the time period between the election and her taking office on January 1st. Obviously, the electors being here was news. I think most people knew that had happened. Certainly was controversial. So the phone call that happened on January 2nd obviously happened after she was sworn in, but the actual reason that a lot of these people were indicted did indeed happen before she took office.
Are you telling me that, or what do we?
Well, I want to establish those facts. I would ask if you would disagree with any of those facts, and then given that, because your assertion essentially was that nothing had happened until after she was sworn in, and I would actually respectfully say that according to the indictment, it was actually the assertion of the indictment that things did begin before she was sworn in.
Okay.
So did the conversation happen relative to a search committee before she took office?
I don't recall.
You don't? I'm sorry?
I don't recall.
Don't recall. Okay. I'll try to get back to this view here. Thanks for indulging me on that.
Yes, sir. Next question.
One last slide here. I gotta do this. This slide's from a couple pages later in the Jordan testimony. Did you have any conversations with anyone besides DA Willis regarding the special prosecutor role and Governor Barnes, I'll say, referencing what we've talked about? I did, and I'm trying to recall if that was, and there's a name that we don't know. He's the individual I had the conversation with prior to my being appointed, if you will, a special prosecutor. Did he work at the DA's office? Do you recall who that individual is that's referenced in the redacted section?
I don't.
And it says, okay, so you spoke with this individual prior to DA Willis taking office, and you said I did. Does that help jog your memory at all as to conversations that may have taken place before she took office?
It doesn't.
Okay. This is a letter. I'll zoom in on this one as well so we can see it better. That was sent from Ms. Willis to, I believe, Congressman Benny Thompson, who's chairman of the Jan 6 committee. Have you seen this letter before?
Says 2021 on it.
I'm sorry. Is that what I said, or I forget what I said?
Well, no, I'm just
Okay.
going through the process in my mind. It says 2021 on it. I can't remember. I'm searching for you, but
Sure.
I can't pull it. I can't get to it.
So this says, please accept this letter as an official request from me to access to records that may be relevant to our criminal investigation. Those records include, but are not limited to, the recordings and transcripts of witnesses, interviews and depositions, electronic and print records of communications, and records of travel. Do you recall there being conversations within the office relative to asking the Jan 6 committee for help relative to any of the things that I just read off that list there?
I don't recall.
Okay. And that, you're right, that was December of 2021. This here, I'll zoom in so we can see this better. At the bottom, this is an invoice from 5 months later for a team meeting. It's like a colon there, conf with Jan 6, research and legal issues to prep what I assume is a shorthand there for interview. Do you remember a conference call that you had with the January 6th committee in April of 2022?
I do not.
Okay.
Now, certainly I'm not saying that it didn't happen. I'm just saying I don't remember the call.
Sorry, hang on a second. I'm sorry, Mr. Wick, can you repeat that?
Sure. I said, certainly I'm not implying that it didn't happen. What I'm saying is I don't remember the call.
Sure. Do you remember any calls that you had with the Jan 6 committee?
I don't.
Do you remember any meetings you had with the Jan 6 committee?
I don't.
Okay. What was the role of the Jan 6 committee as you understand it?
I don't recall.
I'm not asking you to recall. I'm asking you what you believe the role of the committee to be.
You're asking me what was their role as it relates to
Just generally. No, sir. Sorry.
I knew it. I knew he was going to go, I don't recall on us. One of you guys is like, the answer choices to the poll should be, I don't recall. This is going to be what he's going to do for the next hour. I'm calling it right now.
Find the question as it refers to their existence.
Well, I didn't work with the January 6th committee, so whatever their role as defined by their organizers or statute is independent of anything that I would have ever done. So I don't want to sit and try and define what they were charged with doing because I had nothing to do with it.
Okay. I'll try to scroll up on this one here a little so we can see it higher. These cameras are blocking us. You're good. You don't need to duck down. It's the actual camera. There's a entry here from about 10 days later. I believe it says travel. Look over here. Travel out of state, interview, and research. Do you recall specifically what that travel was?
I have no clue. That's 2022.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
I have no clue.
Okay. I want to show you a Politico article here. Have you seen this article here before? It says Jan 6 committee helped guide early days of Georgia Trump probe.
I've not.
They state there in the subheadline, in the spring of 2022, the committee staff helped Fulton County prosecutors prepare for interviews with key witnesses. Do you recall either you or your staff working with the Jan 6 committee to prepare for interviews with key witnesses?
No.
Okay. In the body of the article, it says that committee staff quietly met with lawyers and agents working for Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis in mid-April of 2022, just as she prepared to convene a special grand jury investigation. In the previously unreported meeting, the Jan 6 committee aides let the district attorney's team review but not keep a limited set of evidence they had gathered. Do you recall a meeting with the committee where there was access given to evidence that you were able to view but not retain?
I do recall that.
Okay. Can you tell me about that meeting? Do you recall where that meeting was?
That meeting was in Washington, D.C.
Do you recall if that was the meeting that is billed for here now that you're?
I don't.
Okay. Seems to be in the same time frame. That trip happened in April. So obviously it says spring of 2022 here. So that was in Washington, D.C. Who went to D.C. with you on that trip?
I remember an investigator, but I don't recall specifically which investigator went. And I do recall that there were maybe 3 lawyers from the team, but I don't recall specifically who they were.
And that investigator would be from your team as well, one of the 5 to 10 people y'all worked with. So 3 lawyers, maybe 1 investigator. Who did y'all meet with there? Do you remember?
An attorney.
Do you recall who the attorney was working for?
I do not recall her name.
You know it was a female.
Can we mute this for 1 second?
Yes, sir.
Oh my God, Nathan. He doesn't recall who he met with at the White House.
Oh, good. Okay.
So just point of clarification.
Yes, sir.
Meeting with this lawyer, the young lady, she was not a member of that committee. This was an attorney.
And she was an attorney working for the committee?
I don't know who employed her, but that's who we met with and had the conversations.
Was there anyone else besides this attorney and your staff that was at this meeting?
I don't remember anyone else.
Okay. So this lawyer, you said essentially showed y'all evidence, not help, but showed you guys evidence that had been gathered and did not allow you to retain that evidence. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you recall the evidence that she provided to you?
I don't.
Okay. Do you recall what interviews that followed that evidence was relative to?
I don't.
Okay. How long was that meeting? Was it multiple days? Was it 1 day?
I'm sure if you go back to the billing, it might tell you if that's.
If this is we don't know if this is the entry or not, but if it was, I'm assuming this travel out of state probably has a good chance of being that because there's not too much travel out of state that you billed for. So this would appear to be 3 total days. You billed 16 hours, so it's not 3 full days. Does that help jog your memory on how long that meeting may have been?
Oh, it doesn't. No.
Okay. The article goes on to say, over the next few months, committee staff also had a series of phone calls with Willis's team. They answered the prosecutor's questions and shared insights on matters like Trump's false electors gambit and his efforts to pursue Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger. Both of those ploys ultimately featured prominently in the criminal charges that Willis brought against Trump and his allies last summer. Do you remember either you or your staff being part of a series of phone calls with the committee staff?
I don't recall that.
Do you recall if you had any further conversations with the female attorney that you met with in D.C.? Were there any other phone calls or meetings with that particular individual?
I did not have any, no.
Okay. Are you aware whether your staff had anyone
sure.
working on that? When I say your staff, I'll use that loosely, your team that you were leading.
I understand. I'm not sure.
You're not sure if they did. Okay. And you do not know whether there were any phone calls with anyone else from the committee staff Is that correct?
I don't understand the question.
The article here says the committee staff had a series of phone calls with your team. I just want to just make sure you said you do not recall whether your team had any further phone calls with any of the other committee staff.
No, sir.
By Jan 6 committee staff.
I don't know that it happened or did or didn't happen. I don't know.
It says the contacts between the committee and Willis's team also helped prepare prosecutors for interviews with key witnesses. Do you agree with that characterization?
I don't.
You do not agree with that characterization?
No.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go on to the next slide here. This says here, Jan 6 Committee Chairman Benny Thompson had previously described, quote, staff level contacts between his panel and Fulton County prosecutors. Does that help you remember any other staff level contacts that were not inclusive of that one meeting with the attorney?
No, sir.
Okay. In early April 2022, nearly 2 weeks before the panel staff met with Willis's team, which does seem to then point to that entry that you did have on your billing as being the correct one for that meeting. Thompson told reporters he wasn't aware of how extensive those contacts were. And on Wednesday, Thompson told Politico that he did not know about the in-person visit that spring. So did you ever meet with Benny Thompson?
No.
Representative Benny Thompson?
I never met with him, but it would seem that it makes sense. If he's saying that he wasn't aware, then perhaps the young lady the attorney that we were talking about wasn't even affiliated with Mr. Thompson. I can't put that together for you.
Yeah, I think he just said what he wasn't. He says he wasn't aware of how extensive those contacts were, but certainly he says he previously described staff level contacts. So he was aware. I think what he's saying he's not aware of is how extensive those contacts were. And I'm just trying to get a better understanding of how extensive those contacts were. Goes on to say in the meeting, members of Willis's team interviewed some of the committee's evidence on Georgia specific matters, including Trump's efforts to pressure local officials and the fake electors' actions in the state. Do you remember viewing any such evidence with that attorney when you were in D.C.?
I do not recall what we viewed, sir.
Okay. It says here, committee staff had more calls with the prosecutors over the following months, including discussions of their conversations with witnesses with whom the prosecutors were planning to interview. The calls helped prosecutors prepare for those interviews. One witness they discussed was Pat Cipollone, Trump's final White House counsel, who spoke with the committee investigators just days before the meeting with Willis's team. Do you remember any calls that helped your staff prepare for testimony from Pat Cipollone?
I do not. I'm not certain who the author of this article is, but I'm certain that they would have no firsthand knowledge of what the content of any phone calls were or conversations in preparation to interview any witnesses were. We prepared as a team, we prepared ourselves for interviewing those witnesses, utilizing the evidence that was collected and gathered by our investigators and ourselves, our team itself.
Do you recall if your committee deposed Pat Cipollone?
I'm struggling to I mean, I recall there being some discussion around it. I don't specifically recall whether we interviewed Cipollone or not.
Did you sit in on most of the interviews or depositions?
All of them.
All of them. So if
that last big exhale took me out. Like, dude, you really don't remember?
there was an interview or deposition with the president's White House counsel that you would have sat in on that.
I would have.
Do you recall that, if that happened or not?
I don't.
Okay. We'll go to our next slide here. I'll unmute y'all. Or sorry, you're muted. Y'all good? Okay. This is a letter on White House stationery. This letter, Mr. Wade, was part of a open records request that was just fulfilled about 2 or 3 weeks ago. America First Legal and Just the News had filed an open records request that was fought in court. I think that before there was a final ruling on that, there was 8,000 pages that were released. Some of those have been made public. This is one of those, just so you know the origin of this. So this is relatively new to the public record, but was voluntarily released by the district attorney's office. Have you seen this letter before from the White House to Mr. Donald Wakeford?
I'm not recalling. I won't say that I've never seen it, but if it's dated 2022 and it came to Mr. Wakeford, I'm certain that I was made aware of it.
We haven't talked to Mr. Wakeford. That's honestly the first time I've seen his name. This would appear that was he on staff with the DA's office, or was he a contractor?
He was on staff.
He's a staff member. Was he part of your team?
Yes.
Okay. Was he one of the 3 attorneys that traveled with you to Washington, D.C. to meet with the attorney?
I don't recall. I do know that he did do some travel. I don't recall specifically which trips Mr. Wakeford
Okay.
was on.
This is a 2-page letter. I'll show you the ending of the 2nd page, because what's at least somewhat significant of this, I think, as it relates to the investigation that you were a part of, is where President Biden waived the executive privilege with respect to the testimony of former Trump administration officials before the special purpose grand jury, which would be your grand jury, or the DA's grand jury that you were helping lead, in connection with any inquiries related to the subjects in the prior paragraph. Does this help you recall at least the overall purpose of this letter? Do you recall executive privilege being waived by the Biden White House?
Well, based upon the letter that you've put up there, I mean, obviously it's about executive privilege. So, yes.
Do you recall that executive privilege was waived as it related to the White House? President Trump's executive privilege was waived as it related to your investigation?
Yes, sir. The letter says it.
Okay. What witnesses did that give you access to that you would not have otherwise had access to?
I don't recall.
Would Cipollone be one of those?
Yeah, I don't recall which specific witnesses there were.
BJ Pack could be the U.S. attorney that they call trying to.
Would it be your understanding that BJ Pack would be someone whose privilege was waived here?
I do recall interviewing BJ Pack.
Okay. Who else from the Trump administration do you recall interviewing?
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank. If you gave me a list of witnesses, I could probably identify.
Mark Meadows?
Mark Meadows.
Interview Mark Meadows.
Yes.
Cipollone, you already said yes to Cipollone?
No. I
We're
didn't.
getting pretty close into the substance of the investigation. So I just want to make sure that we're not.
Yeah, I mean, one of these is in a news article.
Yeah, if we're asking about newspaper reports and public documents, that's fine. But if we're asking about what went on in certain conversations.
Do you recall the event of privilege being waived, something that you were waiting on to be able to proceed with interviews of people that you wanted to talk to?
Pursuant to this letter?
Pursuant to, you would not have had access to them because privilege would prevent you from interviewing them. This letter comes and now you have access to them.
Yes.
Okay. Would you describe this as a significant moment in the prosecution that gave you access to those individuals that would help you build your case?
I don't think one piece of evidence is any more significant than any other. The evidence is what it is, and I wouldn't weigh any piece heavier than any other piece. So I wouldn't necessarily say that it's significant or not significant. It's just a piece of evidence.
I never understand what the hell he's saying. Like, what? What?
It's my understanding that the purpose of executive privilege essentially is to prevent this kind of thing from happening, where the president would have the ability to adjudicate his duties and would be able to go to his counsel, similar to the way that we're all going to our counsel with privacy, and be able to get honest conversation. It would appear to me, at least, that the waiving of that by President Biden was significant. Do you recall, as it relates to Mr. Wakeford, talking to him about asking for privilege to be waived from the White House?
I don't recall.
Do you know if Mr. Wakeford asked for privilege to be waived from the White House?
Well, now you get into processes and procedures on witnesses, so I object to it on that basis. It gets into the deliberative process on whether.
Thank you, Governor. We got the
Well,
objection.
wait just a
Just read
minute.
us the
I'm
question.
entitled to make the record. You don't have to tell me.
I think you've made the objection.
All right, here we go. Grandpa done woke up. Roy done woke up from his nap.
No, I'm entitled to make the record and make it fully.
Let's hear the testimony.
And say what?
I said, let's hear your testimony then.
Well, I resent that.
Governor, your objection is on
The objection is that it gets to processes and procedures of how the investigation went on. The question is, did Mr. Wakeford ask for and encourage the waiving of the privilege? That gets into a process or procedure of how the investigation was undertaken. You can ask him whether, and you got the letter, you can ask him, did he request it?
So, Mr. Wade, do you understand the question that I just asked?
What's the question?
The question is, did you discuss with Mr. Wakeford, or did you request from Mr. Wakeford to seek the waiver of privilege?
I don't recall how it came about.
Okay. This document here was another email to Mr. Wakeford that was part of that open records request that I referenced earlier. Same place we got the White House letter that I just showed you. This is an email from Mr. Wakeford dated March 14th, 2022 to a Miss Lori Baranek, I believe, perhaps is the pronunciation. Does that name ring a bell to you? Lori Baranek?
It does.
Who is Miss Baranek?
She's the person that this letter went to.
What does she do for a living?
I'm not sure.
What's an AUSA?
An assistant U.S. attorney.
Okay. And this is Mr. Wakeford asking the assistant U.S. attorney. I wanted to reach out to you, see if it might be possible for a couple of us from FCDAO to come up the road and sit down with you for a few minutes later this week, possibly Thursday. We anticipate that we might have to make a few more TUI requests, and I thought it would be beneficial to have a conversation about that process. Just let me know if there's something we might be able to work out. Either way, we will see you on Monday at 1 Atlantic Center. The number below is my direct line. We've heard testimony before about the TUI request that y'all are working on. Can you just refresh the committee's memory of what a TUI request is?
Just getting permission to talk to people.
Okay. And do you recall if you traveled to this meeting with Ms. Baranek?
I don't recall specifically being there, but I can say that if it was a meeting, I was there.
Okay. Do you know what the meeting is here that's referenced Monday at 1 Atlantic Center?
Well, wait just a minute. That gets into a process and deliberation of the investigation. What, do you know what the meeting was about?
No, I asked if you remember. Do you remember attending a meeting? I'll clarify that. Do you remember attending a meeting in March at 1 Atlantic Center?
Again, I don't recall specifically attending the meeting, but if the meeting occurred, I was there.
Okay. So she's with the Department of Justice. This is another email from the Department of Justice to Mr. Wakeford. I actually don't see a date on this one here, but the headline here, heading on the second one does show us that page. Shows the date of May 1st, 2022. It's just a couple months after the last one. This one here is from Mr. J. Macklin. Do you know who Mr. Macklin is?
I do not.
Okay. And it says, well, we write in response to your April 19, 2022 letters, Civil Chief Lori Baranek's requesting the DOJ's authorization to interview 5 individuals in conjunction with the Fulton County District Attorney's Office. And it says it goes on to list former Attorney General William Barr, Acting Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen, former Acting Deputy Attorney Gerald Donahue, former Assistant Attorney General Stephen Engel, and Inspector General Michael Horowitz. Were those all individuals that you interviewed?
I don't recall.
Do you recall if you interviewed Bill Barr?
I don't recall.
Okay. Is there any individual on that list that you recall interviewing?
I guess what I'm communicating to you is we could have interviewed all, none, or some of them. I have no independent recollection of any of these people.
Okay. This is an email from Michael Hill to a redacted individual here, but appears to be Miss Alexis Hunter. Who's Michael Hill?
He was a former investigator with the Fulton County District Attorney's Office.
Working as part of the team that you were leading?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Was he the investigator that traveled to DC?
I don't recall if it was this investigator or some other one.
So he identifies himself as senior investigative officer. Our office is currently engaged in an ongoing investigation. As we discussed, my team and I would like a brief audience with Congressman Thompson related to the aforementioned subject matter. Please forward this communication to Mr. Thompson. Email response comes from Mr. Tim Heapy, Investigator Hill. He identifies himself as Chief Investigative Counsel for the House of Representatives Select Committee to investigate Jan 6. We've called that the Jan 6 Committee. I understand that you reached out today to some or all members of the Select Committee seeking information about our interaction with 2 particular witnesses. Do you know who Mr. Tim Heapy is?
As I recall, Mr. Heaphy was one of the lawyers that was in communication with us.
One of the lawyers for the Jan 6 committee?
Again, I don't know that he would have been characterized as such, but Mr. Heaphy and this young lady were associates of some sort.
Okay. Did you ever meet with Mr. Heaphy?
Yes.
Okay.
I just want to say something about the process. You don't meet with a committee when you go to DC. When he's referring to the select committee, there's independent lawyers that they bring in, various people. You don't know, just because it's on somebody's signature line, you don't know what role they're actually playing with it. So there's layers to these things, and there's nobody that just represents the committee. That's a job in itself. These are independent folks that move in and out. There's different layers of all this stuff. So it's very hard to answer questions when he's talking to people. They don't have defined roles, even though they may say that on some letterhead or some signature line. It's not as clear cut as it would seem. So,
And the other question I have an objection is, how is this relevant to proposed legislation? In other words, the January 6th committee overseeing the coup that was encouraged by President Trump, and that's going to be a matter of legislation for the Georgia General Assembly.
Well, Governor, you were a member of the General Assembly. As you know, we can write all sorts of pieces of legislation that endeavor to do various things.
I saw him during the time.
So your objection, let's just clarify, your objection is on scope?
On the scope. Because it can't be the subject of legislation that has occurred in Congress. You're asking about a congressional committee.
I'm asking about
one that investigated the overthrow of the United States government. It's the worst thing I've ever witnessed in my lifetime.
Mr. Evans just told us that we can't be sure exactly who this individual is working for. So that's what I'm trying to get to. And then we'll get to the travel in a second. But he identifies himself as Chief Investigative Counsel to the Jan 6 committee. His subject, or I should say his signature line, identifies himself as the same. And he references that you all were seeking information about interaction with 2 particular witnesses. I think, Counselor, it's probably safe to assume that's in the context of the Jan 6 committee and the Trump election interference case. But just to clarify that, Mr. Wade, do you recall who the two witnesses were that Mr. Heaphy references that you guys, your members of your team had reached out to some or all members of the committee seeking information on?
I do not.
Wait just a minute. Only if they were publicly available. You can't, if it's part of witnesses that were never disclosed, then you put them at risk of harm, and not only that, as part of the deliberative process. I mean, after Fani Willis testified, the number of threats that y'all compelled her to do, the number of threats increased to her.
This says here, my colleague Dan George has been in touch with DA Willis about this matter, and we'd like to ensure continued communication as your grand jury investigation moves forward. Do you know who Mr. George is?
Mr. George was in touch with DA Willis. I have no clue. I think she might be better served to answer that.
You don't recall talking to Mr. George, nor do you know who Mr. George is?
That's correct.
Okay. And this says we'd like to ensure continued communication as the grand jury investigation moves forward. This was in April of 22. I think you traveled up there afterwards, which maybe is the communication that they're referencing, but just want to get this, we'll get all the way to this in a second. I look forward to our discussion in the morning, and that's dated April 20 of 2022. There's an invoice here that you submitted that shows 4/18/2022 to 4/21/2022 team meeting conference with Jan 6, research legal issues to prep interview. This is the one that we looked at earlier. Does this help you recall a trip to DC to meet with January 6th, the Jan 6 Commission?
No, sir.
Okay.
You billed for it.
When you say it doesn't help you recall that, you're saying it doesn't help you recall if you traveled there, it doesn't help you recall the actual content of the meeting?
Oh, I'm positive I traveled there.
Okay.
I just don't know when.
Okay. And these things are running together a little bit for me, but is this the meeting where the female individual, the attorney that you met with, was present?
I don't.
Yeah, just objection. We're getting into process again.
On the presence of somebody that we already discussed that he met with?
Yeah, well, he met with them, but I don't want to talk about people that he met with and name individual people.
Luckily, we can hear when they mute their mics and unmute it because I boosted the audio, but you just heard his attorney say, just say you don't recall.
We know that Mr. Dan George, you said you don't know who that is. Is Will Wooten someone that worked on your team, or is that somebody that did not work on your team?
He did, indeed.
Okay. And Mr. Wakeford, we know worked on your team. And then Adam Nev,
Nay?
I'm not sure that's cut off or not, but is that an individual that worked on your team as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then Ms. Trina Swanson Lucas.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this email went to 4 or 5 of the folks that worked on your team. You're not copied on here. You probably don't recall if you see that email or not. Actually, I apologize. I do see you on the bottom. I'm assuming that's you there. Your email address is redacted out, but it's got all one word with your name on it right there. So you actually were on this email. My apologies. I want to go to the next one here. This is after the trip. This is from Mr. Heaphy again. Investigator Hill, it was good talking with you yesterday. I've discussed your request for information with the committee, and I think we can accommodate to some degree. As we discussed yesterday, we're willing to provide an oral summary of what certain witnesses have told the committee in interviews and depositions. We are also prepared to give you access to some committee documents in camera in our office. And this was it would appear to me that this is exactly what the Politico was reporting on, that you referenced that you had been to a meeting in DC where the female staffer was, the dates, the general time frame aligns, and obviously there's a discussion of evidence was given in camera. So I'll move on. I think we've covered that. This is an email from Mr. Hill back to Mr. Heaphy again. It says, we would like to thank you for your prompt follow-up. We would like to confirm the meeting date, January 28th. We are currently confirming travel arrangements. And I think that's a different trip here that says travel out of state, interview and research. I think I asked you if you recall this conference. I'm not sure if that's a conference call or an in-person conference. Do you recall anything about this line item here, this travel out of state that they were referencing in that email?
I don't.
Okay. Just a couple more here and I'm almost done. This says, this is an invoice from May 23rd, 2022. It says travel to Athens, conf with White House counsel. 8 hours. Do you recall a meeting with or a conf with White House counsel?
I don't recall, but you know, I'm looking at the invoices as you put them on the screen, and I'm looking at the numbers there, and those numbers are being used as if they are inflated somehow or some large number that the county was being billed. And when I compare my invoices to those of the individuals who are requesting money from Fulton County, it pains me because I'm looking at, for example, Mr. Cheely's asking.
Oh my gosh. Do you know what he's doing? He's like, I'm looking at the block billing that I did here in comparison to the 17 million in legal fees that people want back. This is such a train wreck. Let's go back in.
For $1 million, over $1 million. Mr. Eastman is asking for 800,000. Mr. Floyd, 900,000, 200,000, $1 million, another $1 million, 6 million, another $1 million, 900,000, 2 million. And these people, I investigated this case for almost 3 years. And the collective invoices for a period of almost 3 years doesn't add up to their 3 months.
I'm not sure what you're referencing for 3 months. I'm certainly not trying to say that anything here is inflated.
What I'm referencing for 3 months is the total involvement of these attorneys' activity on this case, dealing with the investigative process, the grand jury process. They represented these people for a period of months. I represented the citizens of the state of Georgia for almost 3 years. And the numbers pale in comparison to what they're asking for.
Yeah, I know that, and I wasn't going to ask you what your normal hourly rate is, but you would seem to indicate earlier in your testimony that certainly is higher than this.
What's higher? And
that's fair. I'm not trying to get into what you charge here. I'm just trying to kind of fully understand who was involved, who the conversations were with. So I apologize if the red line around the 2,000 gives you the impression I'm trying to highlight that. I'm trying to highlight what's to the left of that. So you indicate you don't recall traveling to Athens.
I recall going to Athens. I do. I just don't recall when or what the subject matter was. Or
do you recall who you met with there?
I don't.
Do you recall in the course of the investigation anyone that you came into contact with that would be described as White House counsel?
No, sir. It could have possibly been the reference from the letters that you just read, the young lady that we mentioned earlier, and or the latter, which was Mr. Heaphy. So it could have been.
Okay.
And we're speculating. I don't recall from two.
I'll get the hourly rate, or I'll get the hours off the screen here for you, Mr. Wade, because that's really not my focus. Last one I wanted to ask you about, this is in September of 22. spans a couple of days, and this says witness interviews, conf call DC team meeting. Do you recall who you would have talked to
No, sir.
in DC during September of 22?
No, sir.
Who'd you talk to on September 22nd?
Well, if you put an invoice in front of me, Governor, I might be able to recall. And certainly, I've been to the White House one time in my life, and I can tell you who I met with. Remember walking in the Eisenhower office building. Remember the guard shack outside where I had to go through security. Remember seeing the store where you can buy the souvenirs. Remember that it was closed that day.
It says MAGA hat.
I didn't get to get into it because it was closed. But what I can tell you is that for me, I'm just a lowly state senator. But when I've gone to D.C. to meet with people, even a couple years later, certainly can recall it.
Well, you make reference to going to the White House, sir. I didn't go to the White House.
Have you been to the Eisenhower office building?
I didn't know.
Okay.
I mean, I've read you, I've listened to your speech. I wish you would waive the speech and debate clause immunity, but I've listened to your speech. It's ridiculous that there was some kind of coordination. Do you believe that
We're not going to get into what I believe. We'll move on here. I want to make sure we stick to the time that you all want to stay with.
we're replaying something from the
No, I'm just asking a question due to the billing. Mr. Wade, is there any reason to believe that any of this billing would be inaccurate?
You said I'm gonna object to the relevance because you said the billing was reasonable. That's the basis of this resolution, not to retry.
Oh, I don't believe I said anything. I don't believe I characterized the billing at all. I think I just said that wasn't the focus of my question.
Well,
And that Mr. Wade had testified earlier that his normal hourly rate is higher. And so I wanted to clarify with him that I was not trying to characterize anything relative to his hourly rate in either direction, but was more so trying to get to who may have been at these meetings. So
but it's
my
the
last question on the,
expenditure that is the basis of this, not the fact that that President Trump committed a crime in this jurisdiction and was presented to a grand jury. So I object to the relevance of going forward.
Governor, your objection's noted for the
All right,
record.
thank you. Go ahead.
all right.
We have speech and debate, and we can let.
I don't even know what that is, Governor, but
What you can't be sued for what you say from the Senate.
well, I'm happy it's there then.
Then a jury can determine.
Governor,
whether it's
Respectfully, we
militia.
appreciate the commentary. We've noted your objection for the record. We'd like to move on if we're going to have any semblance of keeping this within any reasonable time
Well,
period.
I didn't say a word for an hour and 20 minutes.
Come on now.
That's not true.
I don't know if it's ever been true besides the times we've been asleep. There is one more meeting I wanted to ask you about, Mr. Wade, that was not on these billings. I did want to clarify. You and I were talking over each other when Governor Barnes was talking. I assume it's your testimony here today that as far as you know, your billings are accurate, and there's no reason to believe that anything is inaccurate. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you know the name Matthew Colangelo, individual who worked at DOJ?
I don't.
Okay. He worked at DOJ and on the 18th of November left and ultimately would end up working with Alvin Bragg. Does that help
No, sir.
you recall who he is? You obviously know who Jack Smith is. I think at this point it's a household name.
Yes, sir.
He was appointed special prosecutor the same day Mr. Colangelo appears to have tendered his resignation. And that was November 18th of 2022. Have you ever met with or talked to Mr. Smith?
No, sir.
Okay. Did you ever meet with or talk to any members of Mr. Smith's team?
No, sir.
Okay. There's try to get this last one on the screen here. So November 18th of 2022 that I just mentioned is the date that Mr. Smith was appointed. And you show here an interview with DC White House on the 18th of November, that same day. Do you recall having a phone call with DC or the White House on November 18th?
I do not.
Do you know from this billing whether an interview would have been in person or via Zoom or over the telephone? Did you have any billing practices where you, if you did travel, you'd state it specifically as travel?
Yeah, I don't recall whether it was in person.
Okay. There's another one on there that is not on the 18th, just a couple of days forward. Just says Jan 6 meeting and attorney conf. Do you recall what that is?
I don't. I mean, there seems to be a lot of attention being placed, or a lot of focus being placed on external assistance. I know that it might be hard to believe, but DA Willis and this little team did the work. She led us, I led the team, and we did the work. We didn't get assistance, motivation, or however you want to characterize it. They did. No one held her hand and guided her through the process. This is her work.
She did ask for assistance, though, and that was one of the very first slides I showed you, where she reached out to Mr. Thompson and specifically asked for that assistance. So that's just what we're trying to understand. But that really gets to the end of the questions that I had. I do want to turn it over to Leader Jones. Then I'm going to need a bio break when you're done, and we'll come back and wrap up.
Thank you.
Now, let me get your mic on there. You have none.
All right, so now we're going to the Democratic Minority Leader, Jones.
Thank you, Ms. Wade. I just have a few questions. And this would come from the public record out of the indictment. So this is all public right now. I ask for any kind of personal conversations. If I'm reading it correctly, and I just want to go over a few things, kind of encapsulate it. If I'm reading it correctly, would it be accurate to say that what you guys were looking at, with just looking at the indictment, I was just looking at that and trying to extrapolate here, was a pattern of conduct by the conspirators that basically would be like this: call elected officials, claim fraud that they weren't even claiming, ask them to then call a hearing. At the hearing, then make various wild speculative things that they knew were not true. And then at that point in time, ask those same elected officials to have fake electors basically be appointed at some point in time. And so in each state, would it be accurate to say that's kind of like the process that would take place?
Based upon the charging document, I would say yes, that's fair.
And with that, when they would go to these hearings, these different conspirators go to these hearings, many times would also be accurate to say that they said things that knew were not actually true. So for instance, when it came to Georgia, for instance, one of the things that was mentioned was Atrium County in Michigan, where they said, one of the conspirators basically said that the voting tabulator had tabulated wrong and gave Biden votes that's with Trump. But wasn't it not accurate that the clerk in that particular county had already said it wasn't a tabulation issue, it was my issue, I had done something wrong? And that what you see in state after state is where these people go to these hearings and say things that pretty much know are not true, but present them as facts. Would you also say, just based on the indictment, that is a kind of a path that you can see?
I would say that happened in Georgia.
Thank you. Also, when you start talking about how many persons actually pled guilty in Georgia?
4 of them.
And one name that also, I don't think pled guilty in Georgia, but one name that also comes up is a person by the name of John Eastman. And by your own personal recollection, I guess just for your own knowledge, do you know whether Mr. John Eastman, who is the president's attorney, has now been permanently disbarred because of certain things that he gave to the president as far as not certifying elections, certifying the 2020 election?
The extent of Mr. Eastman's involvement, I couldn't pontificate about. I'm not sure, but I do know that he's been disbarred.
And would you also agree, just looking at the indictment here, that the way this was kind of structured, the scheme was structured, just based on the indictment, that you needed to have the states, these 6 states basically, Georgia being one of them, you needed that basically bring their elections into doubt to where that then would fit any type of recommendation not to certify the elections on the federal level. So in other words, each part of this scheme was, let's bring the state elections in doubt, and therefore we can connect it and say, hey, Vice President Pence, do not certify. Was that part of this?
I'm going to have to not answer that question because I think it would comment on touch on areas that I'm not allowed to address.
You mind sliding that microphone just a little bit closer to you, or just raise your voice a little bit?
Sure.
Thank you.
One of my final ones, actually, just judging by the indictment, which is in here, these two organizations are actually listed. Anybody who went to these hearings and talked about sort of these wild kind of schemes or these things trying to bring the election to in doubt, they also would have been flying in the face. I think the indictment talked about the fact that two federal agencies on November 12th had already said that the election was actually clean and it was fair and it was a good election. And that these people who many work for the federal government would have been aware of those agencies saying that. Is that basically correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I don't have anything further.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Chairman Cowsert, did you want to? You're on
A
six.
couple, if you'll allow me to.
You're recognized.
So thank you for being with us here today.
Yes.
Prior to this case, had you ever served as a special prosecutor before?
I served as
Great
a special assistant U.S. attorney.
What type of case was that?
Wasn't a case.
Just investigation? Had you ever prosecuted a felony offense before this case?
Prosecuted or defended?
Excellent
Prosecuted.
question.
Again, in my open, I indicate that I've defended cases ranging from murder on down, murder,
Yeah.
rape, robbery, aggravated assault. I've defended all those cases. I know from the hearing, the disqualification hearing, the way that I was painted was as if I had no trial experience or wasn't even familiar with the courtroom. Quite to the contrary. I've defended lots of cases all over the state.
You just had never prosecuted before?
I had prosecuted. I'd
Felonies?
never prosecuted this type of case. In fact,
Okay.
no one has.
Yeah. Any involvement in RICO?
And no one has ever defended this case.
Any involvement in RICO
No, sir.
prosecutions? before?
No, sir. I got all my training at that time.
Okay. And would you mind putting into evidence with us the letter to you from DA Willis intimidating you from revealing any details about your case? Because that's why you have not been free to tell us.
I didn't have an
Details.
intimidation letter, but I wouldn't mind putting the letter that I read into the record.
Right. That's the
Oh,
one that reminded
shoot.
you that you can't say anything.
Yes.
Oh,
prosecution.
shoot.
Okay. What was your reaction to the fact that the judge ultimately dismissed this case that you brought as groundless, unsubstantiated?
Wait, that's not what he said. He didn't say. it was
Let's
wrong.
let him answer.
I
If he-
object to
Yeah.
the characterization.
Well, I object to you saying it's the greatest coup in history on January the 6th,
So you're
and that's your
defending-
personal opinion.
So you're
you know.
defending,
I
you're
just-
defending what happened on January.
If you could either
the
answer my
6th?
question or state your objection, Mr. Wade.
And the president standing out there and saying, if you don't go up there right now, you'll lose your country and hang Mike Pence, you're defending that?
You're free to have your interview with the press after this.
No, sir,
I'm
I
trying to
think
wrap
that
up
was
this
all matter
question,
of
and
a
you know.
record. And I just want to know, are you defending that?
I am not under examination from you, Governor. I know you're making your political points, and I hope you get your TV time from doing that. I just
All right,
need
gentlemen,
to answer this question.
call this back to order.
Governor, your objection's noted for the record. Thank you.
What's your question, sir?
I wanted your reaction to the fact that the judge ultimately dismissed your case. After you guys have been disqualified, Pete Scandalakis ended up
So
investigating.
I stand by the work that we did. You know, I doubt that anyone other than this team has had ample amount of time and opportunity to review all the evidence in this case. It is impossible to do that within such a short frame of time. So anyone who says that they reviewed this case in its entirety, they're not being forthcoming, because it's not possible to do so. My reaction is I stand by our work. I stand by that indictment, and I'm very proud of the work that we did.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Not from me.
Chairman, all right. Thank you. Absolutely give Leader the last word here on 9.
Yeah, but isn't it also accurate? There's actually other defendants that are still under indictment in other states that are still pending, and they're with similar charges. Is that not correct?
I believe so.
All right, thank you.
Anything further, Mr. Leader?
Nope.
All right, gentlemen, I do want to thank you for your time today, Mr. Wade. Thank you for appearing today. We didn't quite keep it to an hour, but we didn't let it drag on too long. Mr. Evans, thank you as well. Appreciate your wife's service to the state. And we will be adjourned for today.
He releases.
He is from this one. Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm going to keep it up for a little bit, but guys, that is the conclusion of this wild hearing. I mean, I called it in several videos. If you guys have been watching it, I knew it was going to be a bunch of I don't recalls. I don't recall this. I don't recall this. I don't recall this. The reason why I was able to guess that that is what we were going to see here for the Georgia Senate committee is that's what happened in front of Congress. So Nathan Wade was in front of Jim Jordan and another committee and asked similar questions. Now, I will say after reviewing all of that, Cowsert asked the most important questions at the end. Yep, it looks like they cut the feed. So if there's any press that happens after the feed, I will do a recap video for you guys. Because really what I'd like to see is all of the dates that were brought up in the emails and things of the like when Nathan Wade said, I don't recall, because he was definitely caught up in some of those like questions that were asked. He didn't answer them properly. And I mean, flat out, it looks like he was lying. So it was crazy. It was crazy. What do you guys think so far? Do we think that Nathan was truthful? Put a 1 in the chat if you think he was being truthful, that he really just doesn't remember, or put a 2 in the chat if you're like, hey, he's covering up some lies. Because here's the reality. You know, he started with an opening statement. Fani had one too. She did it off the top of her head. The other thing that was different about this hearing compared to Fani's hearing is that he read a letter that was written by Fani Willis, reminding him of certain things that he can say and cannot say. That was a display of some type of power she thought she had, you know, and Cowsert actually closed this beautifully by saying, was that letter a letter of, you know, how do you say it? It's almost like you're intimidating the witness, intimidating Nathan. That, I mean, we could rewind it and go back to that, but it's like, you know, I'm seeing a majority of 2s. I don't think I see a single 1 in this chat right now. I see 2s, so many 2s, just all 2s. Like, there's a lot to unpack here. Let me just look at my notes. We started with talking through block billing. This is your recap for anybody that missed certain parts, but we started with block billing and looking at how Nathan block bills. Ironically, he didn't recall a lot of things, right? Like, and it had a description, but we even compared it to Anna Cross, who was also working in the Fulton County District Attorney's Office in a similar capacity, but Nathan Wade was leading the team. And they put those side by side to show the differences in terms of, hey, Anna bills down to the second or down to the minute. Nathan Wade did not bill in that manner. There were descriptions for several meetings with people from the White House, and he just didn't recall. He didn't recall what they were about and things of the like. But because he was the lead investigator, if he opened up and told what all those things were about, I guess they were arguing attorney-client privilege and privileged information and work product and things like that. And technically, the case is dismissed. If you watched my video earlier this week, we talked about Judge McAfee's latest ruling on the $17 million. The defendants have not been reimbursed just yet, but Judge McAfee at this moment wants them to be reimbursed, and it's going to come out of Fulton County's budget, not the DA's budget. All right. So Fani, guess what she did, chat? I mean, for those that already saw the video, this is what she does. McAfee puts that order out Monday, 3 p.m. An hour later, 4:30, who do you think appealed it? If you guess Fani, you are correct. She appealed it literally an hour and a half later. It's like you're still fighting. You're still fighting for this case. And with the theatrics with this letter for Nathan Wade to have to read her words, I do think that Cowsert was right, that it was a semi-warning. And you know, that takes a lot. We haven't had a chance to film it yet, but she was in front of the Capitol. I think it was Tuesday.
and they were talking about what's it called? She was, wait till you see it. I'm just gonna put it in a video for you guys. It's a 2-minute clip of Fani saying some disparaging things. And that's why I thought that Nathan would be testifying today. It got very close. Like, we were planning for a plan B in case he didn't, because he didn't testify last month as scheduled. But around an hour ago, we got word that he might be testifying. So interesting stuff. Let me read some super chats. Really want to shout out our stream sponsor, Pam Salters. She gifted 20 memberships. Thank you so much, Pam. Pam is amazing. She has supported the growth of my channel for, I think, almost 2 years now. Pam has been around forever. And she also sent me, I thought I saw it earlier. Yes, she sent me a $50 Cash App. Pam, thank you so much. The work that we do here is super important. I don't do it alone. I do it with a team. And when you guys like support the channel and the work that we do, it really means a lot. If you received a membership from Pam, I think she's one of the only people to gift them. Please say thank you to her. And I've also been saving some on my end. But I do need to run chat because it looks like someone is at my front door. But let me read these real quick. I'm going to do this in like 60 seconds. Shout out to D, hits me with a 2, says, Nate, we know you're a liar and a cheater. Thank you so much, D. Shout out to Mindy. Actually, yes, guys, I do need to run. Hold, please. Actually, I might not have. Okay, sorry about that, guys. I am back. So I was just at, I think we were wrapping up right around Mindy. Thank you so much. No comment, no question, pure love of the game. I'm going to stick around for a little bit and answer any questions you guys have about the hearing that we just watched. And then me and my team are going to get together and start chopping up the footage and shorter versions of it. Shout out to Red Bunny, who is in Canada. Good to see you. Drops a 5 and says, Mr. Wade is in the building. Yeah, you know, I thought this was scheduled for 8:39, and it was such a surprise that an hour or two ago, we got the notification that he was going to be testifying. And I've been checking it like a hawk every single day this week, just because I'm like, all right, if he doesn't show up, he'll be found in contempt. And the stakes are high. I know that they've been planning it, and you can tell that they have literally been negotiating, because Senator Dolezal did tell us that at first this date wasn't going to work. I mean, last week they were really, really deep into the session, and they're still deep into the session now, right, for this season. So it was very, very much a surprise, because they were going to pick a different date, and it looks like this date worked out. So he showed up. But thank you so much, Red Bunny Classic. Shout out to La Marquise. I hope I'm saying that right, with a 5. Thank you so much with a super sticker. I really appreciate you. Coming over to D with the 5 says, from Cobb to Fulton counties, Gigolo Wade made his rounds in Georgia, even though he was married. Yes. So here's the other thing with that. So, you know, Cowsert actually asked some pretty good questions about, hey, with your experience, have you ever prosecuted cases of this magnitude before? I thought that was an excellent question, because that's the thing. And Nathan was just like, well, everybody was, you know, in last year's hearings, everybody was painting me as if I'm inexperienced. And then he started to calmly ask him about RICO. And when he started to tiptoe into those questions, that's when Roy Barnes throws his hands up, and you get the grandpa distractions. And he's just like, oh, let's talk about January 6th. You're condoning that? We're not even talking about that, Roy. We're not even talking about that. We're talking about RICO. That was a question that was asked. So it's almost like a diversion tactic. And in December, when we watched Fani's hearing, the issue is with Fani and Roy is they were both doing that together. It was like a ping pong,
right? Like Fani was kind of leading the conversation, trying to overthrow the conversation in a sense. But then at the same time, Roy would chime in. And that's why that hearing lasted about 3 hours, I think, when we watched it last. This one was just an hour and 20 minutes. I was very surprised at how short it was. But yeah, they really went in on Nathan's experience. If he ever tried any RICO cases before. Fani herself has, but he had not. And then I thought what was also nice is he talked about the groundless and dismissed case. So, Judge McAfee did say that it was groundless. So, if Nathan Wade is the person that was leading the investigation, I was very curious to see how he was going to react to that. And he said he was proud of the work that they did. Interesting. We'll keep going, but very interesting stuff there. Thank you so much, D. And he has another one here with the 2. Says, damn, Fani robbed Thug to pay for Nate. Well, that was also another interesting question. They asked if Nathan was aware that he was being paid with forfeiture funds. Now, a few of you guys in chat were talking about the forfeiture funds, but what are forfeiture funds? Basically, when it comes to criminal investigations and things of the like, let's say drug money is involved, things of that nature, or any possessions of value that can be connected to criminal activity, right? Young Thug was brought up a lot in chat because that was one of the cases, the last RICO cases in Georgia, and the longest case in Georgia history that was shared as a comparable. Young Thug, the rapper, his things were taken away. He was recently awarded those items back, his possessions back, with several cars, I think about $150,000 in cash, jewelry, things of the like. Because it was RICO, they tried to say he was the mastermind of a criminal organization. Those items have been since returned. I think he recently got engaged too, so he's doing much better after the dismissal of that case. But that's the second RICO case that I would say in the last 5 years that Fani Willis has bought against people in Fulton County. So you have the Trump election interference case, you have the Young Thug RICO case, and I think about a decade ago, she bought the education RICO case as well. So that's another thing. Like, she seems to use this legal scheme of RICO often. And it's really under, I think the first one, she was a prosecutor trying it. And then these last 2 were bought while she was the actual DA. So a little bit of a history lesson there. But thank you so much, D. Shout out to Nurse Janice across the pond. She's been with me for 21 months as a member. She says, this is like old times. Thank you, AV, for being you. Thank you, Nurse Janice. And I hope your family's doing well. She is a mod here, guys. Whenever you see Nurse Janice in the chat, please say hello. She is such a sweetheart. Good to see you, Nurse Janice. Going over to Chris with the 5. He says, it's interesting. No one was ever charged with insurrection, not even Trump. It was all for challenging the election, which is lawful to do. Yeah. And I think that's the thing, because this isn't just about this election. It's elections in the future of the country, right? We want them to be modern, meaning that the technology we use works and is reliable. And 2, they need to be bulletproof. I mean, they need to be bulletproof in the sense that they are safe, sound, and fair elections, right? So there's also this big debate right now with the SAVE Act. So for those of you that are politically savvy, like, that is another, point of contention this week. I think that right now Congress was close, but we might still be at a stalemate with passing that thing. And it does include some things that people are not happy about, things about gender, things of the like. But the big gist of it is voter ID. Just require it. Just pull out your Georgia license, scan it, and go. Like, that should be how easy it is. Like, there are so many things that require ID in this country, and voting should be one of them. I mean, that's my opinion, but we will see what happens with that. But thank you so much, Chris. Shout out to Dub Right Side with the 10, says hot dog let Fani pull him in some nonsense, and now he's in the hot seat sounding like Woody. Yeah, and for those of you that haven't seen little Woody in action, he is one of the people involved in the Young Thug case. And when he was on the stand, he was on the stand for about 6 days testifying. And a majority of his testimony was, I don't recall, to the point, dear viewer, that I had to make I don't recall merch, and you guys loved it. Speaking of that, I have since enhanced it. So if anybody's interested, you can go to avtotheseventhpower.com, and we have I don't recall shirts, okay? I anticipated this for Nathan Wade testifying, but I have them in your lovely spring colors. We have a mint color here. We've got it in Heather Natural. We've got it in blue. We've also got it in pink for the girls. But yes, we have an I don't recall spring collection that I did build for you guys. We've got coffee mugs, water bottles, things of the like. But I knew Nathan Wade was going to say this. This is how confident I was in the I don't recall response. I was calling it at the start of the week. I was like, I know if he testifies, every answer is going to be I don't recall. But now that he's done that, we really need to go through the dates and the evidence and the questions that they were trying to ask him and then spot the inconsistencies. So me and my team will do that today. But wanted to definitely show that to you guys. Shout out to Buddy305 Love with the 5 says, AV, what can happen to the charges some of the defendants pled guilty to since this was a RICO? It's very complex because when you look at the original indictment, and you saw it in the Young Thug case too, Young Thug started with 28 original defendants. People can plead out, or, in some cases, they had specific crimes that were, like everybody was charged with the RICO, which was count 1. But I think there was somewhere around like 78 counts in total. So, defendant 1 can have count 1, 30, and 40, right? 3 of those counts just particular to them. If that person chooses to plead out early in the process, then that's what happens, right? Now, they did talk about people in other states that they've been trying to talk, they mentioned that in this hearing. So that came up as well. But when you have that, the defendant pool changes. So we went from 28 there down to 6. And I think we saw that in the Trump RICO case as well. We had a much larger pool of defendants that shrunk down a little bit because the people that wanted to fight it, they're going to fight it. They're like, all right, let's go. And now those attorneys' fees are being refunded. I think all but one, it might be Ashley Merchant's client that did not want their legal fees reimbursed. And I think there was another one who was a female, but that defendant pool definitely shrunk. So if one person pleads guilty, doesn't mean that everybody in that group pleads guilty. So hopefully that answers your question, buddy. Great question. You guys are on it today. Shout out to Dub again with the 2. Says smash that like button, family. Yeah, you guys did decent with the likes. I think at the peak we had 1,700 people in here. And we have 700 likes. When you hit the like button, it actually just helps me show up in your algorithm a lot faster. So that's why you'll hear YouTubers say that. But if I'm ever live watching a hearing and stuff, this will get to you a lot faster when you hit that like button. So thanks for the reminder, Dub, and for the super chat. And then shout out to DJ Jones with the 10 says, keep up the great work. Thank you so much, DJ. We have been working really hard covering this case. I mean, we have watched it about 2 years now. The next big one next month is Courtney Clenny. So we are preparing for that one too, but there's just so much going on in the legal world and it's a lot to keep track of, but we are on top of it. I think coming to the last one, I have a $10 PayPal from Larry. Thank you so much, Larry. Larry says, thanks for your work to keep fraud and dishonest people brought into the light and keep fighting the good fight. Please keep up the good work. Thank you. You guys are so supportive today. I'm really, really appreciative of all the love that we've received. We've really been working hard on this. So what happens next? I think what's outstanding is the FBI investigation into the ballots. So that is still ongoing. More to come on that because the results from that investigation, I believe, are going to be out very soon. It started when? January, late January into February, early February. And we're now in mid-March. So I do think we're going to get the results for that very, very soon to see what they find. I'm very curious to see why they wanted those ballots and what they were able to find. And then on top of that, you also have this big legal fight of Fulton County wanting the ballots back and saying that the seizure was unconstitutional. So that legal fight is still in flux. We're watching that one very, very closely. And then here, Fani's attempting to get a stay and appeal placed on the fact that these attorneys' fees need to be reimbursed, and the judge ruled upon it. I've not seen a Court of Appeals response yet, so I'm watching that one closely too. Shout out to Brian who has a question here. It says, "Hey AV, are you going to cover the 2 high schoolers, the ones that stabbed each other?" I haven't had a chance to see that one yet.
The two cases that we are bringing on in the month of April are Courtney Clenny, of course. That's one of our videos this weekend. If you haven't heard about it, it's this OnlyFans model. She down in Florida, she threw a knife at her boyfriend. It kind of like it flipped across the room. She alleges that it was self-defense and it struck a vital artery and the young man died. He's like 27, 28 years old. Same thing with the girl. She is being charged for murder in the second degree. And last week she was in court, like literally sticking out her tongue, and she, it was a mess. She thought this was funny, and it's not funny at all, So very, very interesting. But that is the next case that we're covering. I think the date we have on that one is April 27th. There's another one that's starting on April 8th where they go to jury selection. That one it's the Julio Fulio remaining defendants. So that one's a big murder case down in Tampa, Florida. So we've been covering that one for a while as well. And then I'm just keeping my eye on the political spectrum over here too. So the channel has been really, really working. Okay, man of the white knife says she stabbed him 77 times. Jeez, wow. Have you guys noticed a lot of female defendants lately? Like there's a lot of women out there that are angry and violent. I don't know what's going on, but looks like June for that one. Okay, yeah, we've got a busy year. There's a lot coming up. And, I do like to balance the law, the true crime, and the political spectrum pretty well. So that being said, I have two more things that I want to do before we wrap. Because we haven't live streamed in a while, Pam gifted some memberships. I get 10 as a creator every single month. So I'm going to gift them out right now. So these are our March giveaways. There are 5 memberships that just went out in chat. So Edward got one, Nikki got one, Lone Wolf, Lee Marie, I think, Boxthorn Flowers. Those are the first 5. Let me distribute 5 more. And that is a free membership that you will have for the entire month. So anytime anybody gives you a membership, you have it for 30 days and you get the perks behind the scenes. So my members help me develop interviews, people that are coming on the channel and talking about some of the topics, different things like that. You guys definitely help us with that stuff. So Tracy just got one, Bless Me just got one, Barbie got one, Sim, and K4K Girl just received an AV membership. So welcome to all the new members. Those are the 10 that I have for this month. And then next month, I'll have 10 more that we can distribute. Okay, last thing. This is going to be a fun activity for everybody that's still here and stuck around, because people like to stay for the show, and then once the hearing ends, they like to leave. So I am planning a series of meetups for just the channel community. So whether that is something that's here in the States or something abroad. At first, I was just going to keep this open to women, but I know a lot of you guys are married, coupled up. So please feel free to think of your significant other. I'm doing a survey of where this meetup would take place. Okay. I'm going to drop the link in the chat. It's like a 2-question survey, kind of like the Fulton County, the Fulton County one I got the other day. Right. Very, very brief. I wanted to keep it for women, just to make it safe, but I think I am going to open it up because this community has done so much for me. And you guys see the channel is growing. We're very, very close to 100,000. I can't believe I'm saying that, but we're close to 100,000 subscribers. So it might be 100,000 subscriber celebration. I'm going to figure it out. But here is the link. Okay. It's in the chat. In order to have this, there's a company that's helping me put it together. In order to have the meetup, 100 people need to, a minimum, 100 people need to fill out this survey. Okay. So it helps me even if you don't plan on coming, if you like the ideas, my vote is Rome. So if you're not coming and you just want to help me out, my vote is Rome. That would mean a lot to me. But I did just drop that in the chat. And for those that are watching in the future, I will section this out into chapters because it's a longer stream. But I will also pin this in the comment section. So if you want to participate and you're not in chat right now, you can check that out as well. Now, we also were talking about how many times Nathan said, I don't recall. The last hearing, the record was 31. We're taking some guesses.
What do you think we landed at for Nathan's I don't recalls? Because I did tally them up here. Are you guys ready? Nathan said, I don't recall 45 times in this hearing. 45. 45. Do you know? Interesting stuff. And guys, when I say Rome, I mean Rome, Italy for the meetup. That's in there. 45. Nurse Janice. Dub was very close with 43. Brian is around 100. YT says 69. Yeah, you got it right, Nurse Janice. Nurse Janice, I might actually send you a free shirt for that one. Can you email me? Can you email me? But yeah, 45. That seems very dodgy. It seems very invasive. Not a great way to show the public in a public hearing, to show public confidence that, you know, you were doing the right thing and you took the investigation seriously. So Nurse Janice, send me an email and I'll make sure I get you a shirt because you were on point with the 45. But yeah, it's a lot. A lot of people are not really happy with the way this investigation went, but wait till you guys see the TikTok of what Fani said in yesterday's hearings. Actually, as a little treat before we go, I might have that on my computer. If I do, we'll do it. Do I have it? I thought I sent it to myself yesterday because we're just about to record on it. Actually, I do. Okay, perfect. I have it here, but it's as a video. Yeah, we might have to skip it, guys. It's going to get a little technical, but it will be in the next video. All right, that being said, I have not had lunch yet, so I'm going to go eat. Thank you to everybody that has supported the stream. I have one more from Crying Freeman with the 5 says meetup in Vegas. Yes, if you guys can fill out that survey, it is pinned to the top of the chat. That would be wonderful. And, you know, of course, once we have more details on where people want to meet up, we will get that done. But this was a lot of fun. It was so good to see everybody that showed out today. Thank you again. And if you are watching this in the future and chat is over, please let me know what you think about all this stuff in the comments. Let's keep the conversation going. We will probably drop a recap video tonight, another Courtney Clenny video tomorrow, and I think we got an Alicia one on Sunday. So we are busy. But thank you guys so much for watching. Stay safe out there. See you in the next one. Bye.